In the beginning, man created an axe. If any of you seen the recent movie Imitation Game, it was about Alan Turing, who was like the world's first digital programmer. And he took the extremely primitive electronics and created a computer out of it, and with that he broke the almost unbreakable code that the Germans used to transmit messages to all their ships and troops and such. That movie kind of covered two of my favorite subjects. One, of course, being computers, and the other being, the history of World War II. By the end of the 40s, that's what a modern computer looked like a scene from Dr. Frankenstein's lab. Pretty frightening, but the era that you all, I assume, like the electronics of today, started in a room like that long before any of us were born, I think. But anyways, to continue with my history lesson on this thing here, does any of you have a memory like this where you were sitting around listening to a console radio, to shows, shows like the Shadow? I don't, but if any of you do, you're way older than me. But this used to be family entertainment. I think for me and almost everyone, certainly Jeff qualifies, I think I was the first generation to be raised on television. That's what television was like in the 50s. I remember something a little bit more modern than that, but that was our era. And everybody in this room lived and died on television, but more to the point. Does anyone remember a time when there was no home computers?
I do.
He does. Anyone else? Hard to believe you have home computers. When I was 20 years old, this was the modern home computer. The one on the left is IBM $1 million computer that only rich corporations could buy. And if you were a little bit rich, a $1 million corporation could afford a 100 to 200,000 portable computer on the left. This is a DEC PDP-11. Needless to say, no middle-class person owns either one of these. Home computers did not exist when I was 20 years old. So, because of the space program, although it never made it there, geniuses of that era created the first microcomputer. And this is one of them. This is the 8088. There was a Z80, 652, and later on the 8088, which is in Argus itself. But that's the first chip. It's not much bigger than like 4 postage stamps. And even now they're even smaller than that. But that was created like around 1975. And just as a point of reference, the people that worked on these computers at that time thought this was a toy. And we were, being one of the first to work on this toy, we were kind of like put down like we're playing with some kind of toy. A toy which has now spawned this entire convention here. And that, as I said, they thought that was just a joke, really a joke. But I had a dear friend, and he saw this very ad of Popular Electronics in '75. That you could build your own computer. What a concept. It was a kit, cost about $1,000, came completely disassembled, and he amazingly paid $1,000 because he wanted to be the first person on the block with a home computer, a concept that you all take for granted today. And so he had to solder every chip, resistor, wire, switch in this thing, and as you can see, unlike all your technology today, this thing was pretty immensely complicated, and it didn't really do much. But lo and behold, he did it successfully, and that's an important point. He had to do it very successfully, and lo and behold, you have your very first home computer in 1975. Cool as it is, it did not have a graphics, so you couldn't do an arcade game on it. Didn't have a touch screen. Didn't have a keyboard. It had no screen at all. It had that. Switches and LEDs. And incidentally, that's where I learned to program. this is all you had. You had to enter in you had to convert the code for the 8080, that's what it was, to a binary code, to a hex code, and then down into, I'm sorry, hex then binary, backwards on that. Flip in the binary code on the switches and store it, 3-part code, and then slowly you would get a program that would maybe read the switches, read the LEDs, and later on you'd write a keyboard routine and a text screen. There was no graphics back then. So that's where it all began for me. And many people took this very simple chip and created the first arcade game, which we are now worshiping, 40 years later. Pong was one of the first arcade games we put a quarter in and got to play with the paddles. It's amazingly simple. One other electronic guru of that time went off and took that same chip and created this. This is a chess challenger. It was the world's first portable artificial intelligence game. It actually could play a decent game of chess, and now it probably could beat almost anyone, but back then it could beat anyone who knew how to play chess fairly well. But it played a pretty decent game of chess. The energy move here, and then it would think about it and come back with a move there. So you could, and it could play itself too. So that was some of the earliest things that these toys were being used for. And a little bit more on fidelity in a minute. And of course, the other people came along with the early days of arcades, the first vector graphics, Asteroids. Black and white though it was a VGA game, Space Invaders, and of course the classic character and highly successful game of Pac-Man all came along, all because of that quote, toy computer. And now, my career began once again with Fidelity Electronics. They hired me because I had to switch in that code way back in '75, this was back in '78, to do a sequel game to their chess challenger. It was called the Bridge Challenger. I don't know if anyone knows how to play the card game of Bridge, but if you do, one problem with Bridge, of course, is you have to have 4 people. Not 3, not 5, not 2. So if you want to play a game of Bridge with humans, you need 4 dedicated Bridge players. So what we were providing here was the ability to substitute 1, 2, 3, even all 4 of the Bridge players to watch the game play with itself and play the card game of Bridge. And again, it's an artificial intelligence game. We had one of the earliest optical scanners in the world, and the cards that we had scan bars, and we would scan them in, so that's how the computer knew what cards it had. And then we would bid it and play it, and that's how we would play the game of Bridge. But again, it's pretty primitive gaming. But by 1981, the arcade business was big. Arcades were as big as, this is Galloping Ghost today, but I had to help my benefactor. But
don't get any bigger than that.
No, yeah, that's true. Our Galloping Ghost is today the biggest arcade probably ever, but there were in 81 arcades almost as big, and they did look sort of like that. And of course the more classic Centipedes came along, and finally an American hit, Defender. These were the games that were coming out in 81. And a company called D-Golly, which was well known for their pinballs, decided, hey, we wanted to get into this lucrative market that was happening in 81. And initially, the team didn't know how to do it. They didn't have a video game division, so they went off to Japan and licensed this one on Right, New York, New York. And Doc, you knew the other game. What was the other game? I couldn't find it on the internet. You don't remember it?
Was it Juno First?
Juno First, yeah. Those were just 2 Japanese licensed games, and they were okay. And I don't think they were as big a hit as anything that was going on. But fortunately, they also had they hired a dynamic new team. I don't have any pictures of them, but their names were Howie Rubin and Ron Waxman. And by the way, this is Bensonville, where a lot of miracles from Gottlieb came from. A little bit Photoshop. They didn't have a neat sign like that, but that is the actual building. But anyways, they were leased this location and decided, okay, we're going to actually make in-house video games. And they hired a complete staff of people. And there's young me. They hired Jeff and Dave is on the Skype, I see, and many others. And none of us had done video games. Even my experience, as you can see, was in standalone artificial intelligence, simple games. And videos is another level different. So they hired this. This is Tim Scully. He was the only one who had actually been in the arcade industry, I think, since '79 or '78, thereabouts. So he was a veteran, and he was going to do their first game, which ultimately became Reactor. And he was going to teach all us newbies. Everyone was there, had never done a video game. So he was supposed to be a mentor to us, and he was also going to provide the first product for Gottlieb. And so that's where it all began. So, first employee meeting. I want to ask you, I had this nicely phrased, what do you do when Ron Waxman, that's a drawing that Jeff did of Ron Waxman at the time, comes up to you and say, okay, we want you to do an original idea for a new arcade game. What do? You hide, run, or start sending out resumes. Or, and that's where pretty much how I thought at the time, think of a scene from a recent movie that you saw. The last 20 minutes was so cool. I said, okay, a game in which a superhero has to save humanity from some supervillains. And that movie was Superman 2. So now we have a game idea, and I don't believe this is your drawing, right? This is Frank. So yeah,
I don't know.
Jeff is
I thought it was.
Frank Sharp.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was your drawing, but
No, I don't even. Artistry has never been one of my things, so I didn't even know it was Frank or you, and I don't think you're that.
one of our managers and
Yeah.
Frank Starshak probably.
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously Jeff is a way better artist, as you're about to see. But anyways, yeah, this was our first meeting, and like I say, I was blessed to be with a very creative team, even though they had never done a video game before.